Hello, BC. Mike here. I thought I would do something a bit ambitious today. I made a short list of five. It started out as five, now it's six. But my favorite jazz guitar players. I play guitar, and um, it's sort of what brought me into jazz is listening to some of these monsters guitar players. I originally wanted to actually do three of them, then it went to five, and now it's six. So I figured I would make this video before I keep adding to my list of favorite jazz guitar players. None of them are, they're all just pretty straightforward, extremely talented, ridiculously talented guitar players. Like, they're so good that uh, they almost make you not want to play at all, as odd as that sounds. So let me get to it. First off is, and I'll try to post links in my description of YouTube clips from some of these tracks, so it'll give you a sense of how insanely good they are. First off is Emily Remler. This album, actually, I'll give you. So this album has John Dirth, Eddie Gomez, and Bob Moses, and Emily Remler is the guitar player. She was a heroin junkie, and she died of a drug-induced heart attack in the 80s. This album was recorded in '84. She only has 3 or 4 albums that were released on Concord label. She hadn't even reached her peak or her prime. Like, she was just getting started, man, but she was insanely good. Um, this album, okay, so the song, so when I first heard this album, I'll give you a bit of history. I first heard this album in the 90s. I happened to be by fluke hanging out one night, and living at my parents' still. I was like 15 or 16, and at that time I was playing in like screamo bands and hardcore bands, some grunge bands. Like, I was just playing a little bit of everything, and I happened to be tuned into this jazz station by fluke. There was nothing on the radio, and it was very quiet because everyone was sleeping. It was late at night, and they happened to be playing the entire album starting from the first track, and I caught the first track, Nuka Maz. I don't know how to say it. Nuncamais. It's a Latin groove, and it's just such a groove, right? And first of all, I love the groove. It was so good, like sort of a Latin feel. And then I heard her guitar playing, and I thought, holy crap, man! It didn't even sound like guitar to me. It was so new to me, and the stuff that she was doing, it just totally sucked me in, right? And I was pretty much hooked at that point, and I just immediately became obsessed with jazz and jazz guitar, because of this one track that I heard on the radio. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of dated, but it still blew my mind when I heard it because it was so new to me. Next, I think he was actually Pat Martino. I think he was one of her mentors, or I don't know, he inspired her or something. This is an album called Exit with Richard Davis, Joe Goldstein, and Billy Hart. Amazing album. The Days of Wine and Roses is on this album, and he actually changes keys like 2 times in the song. He's like insane, so good. And Pat Martino, in the 80s, had a near-death brain aneurysm. So he had a major operation, and he lost all of his cognitive ability, any of his like hand movements, speech. He lost everything, couldn't function, and he actually retaught himself how to play guitar by listening to his older records, and he again became the monstrous guitar player that he was. So, um, talk about hope, right? Like he went from not being able to move to learning how to play guitar like most people will never be able to play. So that's pretty amazing. And he's a Philly guy from Philly, and I think he was actually Joe Satriani's guitar teacher. So he's responsible for teaching Joe Satriani how to play guitar, which is, that in itself is pretty insane. Next up is Jim Hall. I'm sure you're all familiar with Jim Hall. This is an album called Concerto. It's a CTI release, and it's a great album. It has Chet Baker, Roland Tanner, Ron Carter, Steve Gadd, and Paul Desmond on sax. And there's a version of Concerto de Aranjuez, which was, I think, you're probably familiar with it from Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain. But this version alone, it's like a 14 or 15 minute track. But the version on this album is so good. It makes the entire album. Like if this entire album was that one track, it would already be worth its money in gold. But the rest of the album is amazing too. And Jim Hall is just a smoking guitar player. This particular album blows my mind. Wes Montgomery, of course. I have to show a couple of classic guitar players. Wes Montgomery. This is Wes Montgomery and Friends. It's kind of hard. Like none of these. I mean, most of these guitar players are just all around geniuses in their craft. So I'm not really picking a particular album per se. It's just I just pulled from my collection. So anything from Wes Montgomery. I mean, he's like the OG of modern jazz guitar. Plays with his thumb, which is pretty amazing. If you hear him, if you've never heard him play and you listen to him play and some of the stuff that he does, it's all with his thumb. And the story is that he learned how to play with his thumb because he had a kid and he couldn't play loud, and he had a thick arch top, hollow body, so he just started playing with his thumb. And it's amazing. Like the liner notes in this album talk about how insecure he always was as a guitar player. He always thought, that he wasn't that good or he wasn't good enough, and there were always so many people better than him. But he's just amazing guitar player. This is of course, Pat Metheny. This is the legendary first album from Pat Metheny Group. And it's just, enough said, right? Pat Metheny, he's done so much. He's collabed with so many people. He's just amazing guitar player. Like some of the stuff he does, I can't even fathom because it's so good. I saw him in a few years ago. I saw him in a small bar in Toronto, where I'm from, and it was just a trio, his famous trio, back in the early 2000s, and so just the three of them in a small bar. It wasn't a hugely publicized show. There were probably 60 people in this bar. It wasn't even a jazz bar. It was just a bar, and there weren't seats or anything. It's just like grab a beer and stand up. There weren't even there weren't chairs, and it was just, it blew my mind, right? It was you're like this close to this monster guitar player, and it was like nothing I've ever experienced. And his trio band is ridiculously good. So being able to see them that close was so intense. Sorry if I'm babbling, my, but I don't know. There's so much to say about these people. And then next up is, I guess this is the last one, Grant Green. Um, what else? I mean, what can I say? He was Grant Green's actually one of my favorites. Ridiculously funky. He was never. He's one of those guys that I don't know. I guess he never really got the street cred that he deserved. Um, he's just amazing. Like his tone is probably the most distinguishable tone. Um, his chops are just so fat and funky, and he's just good, man. And I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with him, anyways. But if you're not, check him out. Um, Unfortunately, there's like zero video out there of him. So um, yeah, he's just someone to check out for sure. Um, and that's it. So how many was that? Like 6. So this goes on and on and on, and I thought I would choose 6. I was originally gonna make this the 6 best guitar players, but you know that's totally subjective, and it's impossible to make it a list of 6. So I made it 6. I guess you can call this 6 of my 6 out of the hundreds of favorite jazz guitar players, and I think it's a good base if you're interested in guitar playing or interested into getting into jazz or into jazz guitar, um, or you know even if you're like just someone who plays guitar and you want to hear someone do something different, listen to any of these, and I'm sure that you will like them. Um, I'm not sure if you can hear the background music, but it's actually a band called the Al Michaels Affair, and the album's called Enter the 37 Chambers, and it's essentially a jazz album of Wu-Tang's Enter the 36 Chambers, and it's just these dudes playing the entire album instrumentally. Really good. So yeah, check that out too. Thanks for watching, and I'd love some feedback or comments.